Hello. I want to speak very briefly about the two television adaptations of Jamaica Inn. Now, I don't often do this because I watch far less television than I do films, but occasionally I'll watch things on YouTube. The reason being, I don't have the discipline to tune into the TV at the broadcast time, so I usually end up just watching it when someone's uploaded it later on, the same with boxing matches. Um, but anyway, Jamaica Inn. So this is based on a novel, Jamaica Inn, by Daphne du Maurier, first published, I believe, in 1939 or sometime in the 1930s. And basically, it's set amidst a backdrop of Cornwall at the turn of the 19th century. I'm not sure specifically when it's meant to be. The second adaptation that I'm going to be talking about, the 2014 adaptation, is very specific. It's 1821, so we're talking a few years after the Napoleonic Wars. Lord Liverpool was in office. Um, the Regency, in fact, just after the Regency. So that's the sort of time frame we're talking about. The older 1983 version doesn't specify that, and there's a 1940s, no, 1939 version, which is an Alfred Hitchcock film. I'm not going to comment on that simply because I haven't seen it, so I'm not in a position to comment on it. That was a feature film version. So I just want to talk about Jamaica in 1983 versus Jamaica in 2014. And obviously, there's going to be some spoilers in this, so if you don't want to hear that, then yeah. Okay, so a quick word about the backdrop. Basically, this is set in Bodmin Moor in Cornwall. Jamaica Inn is actually a real place. It was built around 1750. It's a Georgian coaching inn, and it's in the town of Bolventor, which is on Bodmin Moor, a somewhat remote part of Cornwall. And it's long, long been a region that's associated with folklore, with mystery. Cornwall in general is one of England's most unique counties. In fact, it's fair to say I've been in something of a Cornish mood of late. I watched Straw Dogs, which is set in Cornwall. I watched Fisherman's Friends on the cinema, which is set in Cornwall. I like Fisherman's Friends, incidentally. I was going to do a film review about that. I'll just quickly say I liked it. I think it deserves the credit it's getting. The only thing I didn't like about Fisherman's Friends, and again, this is a spoiler alert. There's a bit at the end where the sort of leader of the band, forget the guy's name, um, he like the London producer kind of it's a good ending, but I think they could have shown some sort of reconciliation because there was tension between the two men, and that doesn't. I think they could have kind of shown a bit more to that, like some sort of reconciliation or some sort of. Anyway, that's not the derail. Jamaica Inn. Let me stay focused. Jamaica Inn. Okay, so the 1983 version was directed by Lawrence Gordon Clark, and it stars Patrick McGoohan, Jane Seymour, Trevor Eve, and Billy Whitelaw. So, if you don't know the story, basically Jamaica ends about a young woman who has to go to live with her aunt and uncle in this remote part of Cornwall. And on the way there, she's warned not to go there. She's warned it's remote, um, but she goes. And very soon, she establishes her uncle's a ruffian, a very unpleasant character, frankly, a bit of a thug, a bit of a dark character, a very menacing individual. And she establishes she's a very assertive young woman, and she establishes that he's involved in the smuggling trade. And more than that, around this time, there was an illicit industry going on in that part of the country known as wrecking, whereby ruffians would basically give a ship, could be a Royal Navy ship, it could be a merchant ship, they'd give them false lighting, give them the false pretense of a lighthouse. The ship would be wrecked, and then they would basically murder the survivors and plunder what was there. Um, Plunder has not completely gone. As recently as 2014, there were reports of, I think it goes by a different name today, scavenging, or it is illegal. And in my view, it's pretty despicable, to steal cargo that's not yours. It's, I mean, it's outright theft. Of course, today it doesn't involve murder and it doesn't involve dark alleyways and all that sort of stuff. Okay, so it's set amidst that backdrop, and again, spoiler alert here. Um, she kind of semi befriends two men. One of them turns out to be the younger brother of her uncle, uh, Joss Merlin, who's the landlord of this pub that she's staying in. And the other is a local clergyman. Both are somewhat shady characters, and eventually, as brutish as her uncle is, she establishes that all along it had actually been this somewhat kindly clergyman who had been behind the whole thing, and he's practicing in paganistic rituals. So Jamaica Inn's a very, I guess you could call it sort of gothic. It's a gothic mystery. Yeah, it's actually described as a gothic period piece of piracy, smuggling, and murder set in northeast Cornwall in the early 19th century. So the 1983 version, Jane Seymour, Patrick McGoohan, Trevor Eve, and Billy Whitelaw. Jane Seymour, I'll be completely honest, I think she's stunning. One of the most beautiful women ever to grace the screen. So I'll be quite honest, the heterosexual male side of me clicked for that reason. Um, I think Patrick McGoohan was good as her uncle. I think the 1983 version, it was a little bit shorter in running time. I believe it was something like 140 minutes, whereas the 2014 production was 3 1 hour long episodes. So I think the 1983 version was good as an introduction. If you're not familiar with the story, it was good at what it done. Is there anything that doesn't add up? In terms of overall production value, in terms of sets and so on, possibly the 2014 version had an edge. However, there is one big critique of the 2014 version, and I'll come to that just now. The 2014 version, incidentally, was directed by, let me just get this up, I'm literally looking at Wikipedia here. Um, the 2014 BBC version was written by Emma Frost, and it was directed by Philippa Lowthorpe. So, and it starred Jessica Brown Finlay of Downton Abbey fame in the leading role of Mary Yellen. Like I said, specifically 1821. Joanne Whaley, who's known for her role in Willow, among many other things, played her Aunt Patience. Her uncle is played by Joss Merlin. Joss Merlin is played, I should say, by Sean Harris. Um, the younger brother, Jem Merlin, played by Matthew McNulty. Shirley Henderson, Hannah Davy, who is sister of the clergyman, Ben Daniels as Francis Davy, the clergyman. Incidentally, the finale is that the law enforcement close in on the Jamaica Inn, um, because they're closing in on the illicit activity that's been going on there. But they find that Joss Merlin and his wife have been murdered, so that definitely adds a new dimension to the story. Okay, so this 2014 version, one of the main criticisms of this, and apparently it received 2,000 complaints to Ofcom, was that it was simply inaudible. Now, this is interesting because there has been a criticism of a certain acting style that we've seen in recent years whereby actors just don't enunciate words. So I thought, okay, I'll check it out. Within 15 minutes, that I found that was absolutely true. About at least one third of this production is simply almost impossible to make out. You have to wind it back and think, what did they just say? And I don't know if that they're trying to be authentic with the accent. I don't know if they're mumbling the lines. I don't know what it is. Specifically, with all due respect, Sean Harris, and apparently he laughed this off, but the guy just isn't enunciating his words. I'm not familiar with him as an actor, but based on this, um, it's just hard to make out what he's saying. And clearly, I'm not the only one who thought so. 2,000 people complained about this, which is quite a lot of people to complain about an issue like that. Um, and the production, the actors themselves laughed it off. I feel that in terms of the atmosphere, in terms of the costumes and all that, it was no criticism there. In terms of, there's a scene also, I think this was done better than the 1983 version, where it showed the ship being wrecked, it showed them murdering the survivors. I thought that was a lot more graphic and dramatic than the 1983 version, which was a little bit, they kind of touched on that scene, but it wasn't really as well done as it could have been. Um, I think Jessica Brown Finley is a good actor, but she was kind of I compare her character to Mary Lennox in The Secret Garden. She looked miserable throughout. Now, because of the situation, you can't blame her. You know, she's with a brutish uncle in the middle of nowhere, and it's. But I felt that was a bit distracting, if I may say so. Jane Seymour managed to get more of a balance, whereby she certainly looked like the rebellious young woman who, um, greatly resented being with a brutish uncle. But I don't know. There were certain scenes where there was more chemistry between her and the character of Jem Merlin. I think in this 2014 production, it was kind of forced somehow. I don't think it didn't feel to me like a natural chemistry between the two, almost like it was just forced for the script. Um, and that's no disrespect to either actor. I just think it just wasn't as convincing. Maybe it was the screenplay, maybe it was the way it was done. I don't know. It just didn't feel as convincing. Overall, I preferred the 1983 version. I think the 2014 version had some strengths that the 1983 version didn't have, but overall, I just preferred the 1983 version. I feel that some things were done well in the 2014 version. The finale was good, where Reverend Davy was there was basically a shootout on the moor. I also thought the wrecking scene was done good. So those two scenes I think were probably done better than the 1983 version. But overall, I think I just preferred the 1983 version. Maybe I'm biased because I'm more familiar with Jane Seymour as an actress than I am with Jessica Brown Finley because I've only seen her in two things, which is Downton Abbey and this. Jane Seymour I've seen in quite a lot of things. So maybe that's a bias on my part. Um, but I think it's a rather irritating thing, this thing about enunciation, whereby, in fact, I'll just read out what Wikipedia says about this. The transmission of the first episode brought about a major debate on social media sites about the sound quality and inaudible dialogue, culminating in over 2,000 complaints being received at the end of the series. Um, Sean Harris later addressed his reaction to the mumbling controversy in an interview after his BAFTA award for Best Actor in a Drama Series for Southcliffe, where he laughed it off. But if you're an actor and you're not being clear, if people can't hear what you're saying, it does reflect on the overall quality because people cannot concentrate. And as a viewer, they have to respect the fact that viewers hear what they hear and see what they see. So I would say that would be a big if I was to make a major criticism of this 2014 series, it would be that I thought, okay, maybe people are overreacting, but I watched it, and right enough, it's at least a third of it is simply inaudible. You can't hear what they're saying. They're mumbling their lines, and maybe on a set they don't feel that, but whatever it is, whatever approach they're taking, it just isn't audible, and it's something I've noticed in a number of TV productions and a number of films for that matter. Robert Pattinson is one of the worst culprits. I don't think highly of Robert Pattinson as an actor because of that reason. I find he tends to be very quiet. He tends to mumble his lines. Um, so for that reason, I don't think highly of actors who do that. Um, they may look the part. I mean, I will say this: Sean Harris looked the part. He looked menacing. He looked like an intimidating character. So in that sense, I suppose he got the persona right. But just the thing about the lines, and he especially was probably the worst culprit. It just definitely impacted the overall quality. So let me know your thoughts if you've seen both of these versions, 2014 and 1983. I've spoken a bit longer than I intended, and I'll leave it there. Thanks for watching.